We are live, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this special council meeting of January 28, 2021 to order. My name is Sandra Easton. I'm the mayor of the town of Lincoln, and we're meeting electronically through Zoom during this declared emergency period. Members of the public may observe the proceedings by accessing the live website at the webcast at our YouTube channel. The Shononton people have called these lands home for thousands of years, and more recently, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee have been sharing the land as one dish, one spoon territory. We would like to acknowledge the enduring resilience of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. I will ask our town clerk to complete a roll call of council to confirm everyone's attendance and to confirm that we have quorum at this electronic meeting. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Here.
Councillor Regima.
Here.
Councillor Russell.
Here.
Councillor Pachariva.
Present.
Councillor Brunet.
Here.
Councillor McPherson.
Here.
Councillor Miklick.
Here.
Councillor Timmers.
Present.
Councillor Reimer.
Here.
And we have quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. In addition, I want to take this opportunity to welcome the staff who we have joining us today electronically. Our Chief Administrative Officer, Mike Kirkopoulos, Director of Finance, Administration, and Innovation, Lawrence Wagner. Lawrence, is this your first meeting? I believe it is.
Yes, still getting used to the nomenclature.
Thank you very much and welcome. The Associate Director of Finance and Administration, Terry Trawala, Director of Planning and Development, Kathleen Dale, Director of Community Services, Shannon McKay, Fire Chief Greg Hudson, Director of Economic Development and Communications, Paul Deanne, Director of Public Works, Dave Graham, Manager of Corporate Communications, Liliana Busnello, Corporate Customer Service Administrator, Deanna Phillips, and the IT staff in attendance is Matt Guadalono. And moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our town clerk, Julie Kirklos. I also want to welcome Regional Councillor Foster from Niagara Region, and also our town solicitor from Eric Bareilles. Tom Holinsky will be in attendance for the closed session. As this is a virtual meeting, I'll just quickly review the procedures as we normally do. Should there be a connection or a service disruption for the chair, or if quorum is lost, the chair and or clerk will call a 10-minute recess to reconnect and to regain quorum. If quorum is lost, the meeting will be adjourned. And if connection is lost from the chair, deputy mayor, or the vice chair will resume the meeting. And once reconnection is achieved, the chair will assume their role. Each member of council who wishes to speak, just press the raise hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track the speakers list and then invite you to speak when I open it for comments or questions. When I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover and seconder, the clerk will then call out the vote by reading each member of council's name out loud. Please remember to take yourselves off mute so that you can vote. It moves things along. And remember to, and you will be confirming whether you're in support or opposed. And when not speaking, please remember to put yourselves on mute. I'll now ask Madam Clerk if there are any declarations of interest.
So we
Councillor
have,
Reimer.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I have a reiteration, declaration of interest from our meeting on December 21st. That agenda item was 14.1 2020-73. The applicant is a customer of the company I work for.
All right. I see Councillor Regima, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, thank you. I can't find the raise hand feature. I think people were talking about that earlier on, but I can't
It's
find it.
under reactions.
Oh, it's changed. There we go. Raise hand. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have to declare a conflict, a reiteration as well regarding item 14.1, bylaw 2020-73, and that's also within the special council minutes of December 21st, 2020, as the applicant under that report is a client of my employer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, I have a declaration of interest this evening. Item 4 regarding 2021-04, the bylaw to authorize execution of heritage easement agreement. My husband and I are the owners of the property at that location. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the next item then is announcements by members. And you have a limit of 3 items. And just raise your hand and the clerk will find you.
Madam Mayor, we have Councillor Rajima up first.
Go ahead, Counselor. You have to unmute.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Mayor. From the chamber, as everyone's aware, we're sorry to announce that Anna Murray, Executive Director of Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, has secured a new position elsewhere that she's quite excited about, and we wish her very well. Chamber executives in the process of reviewing applications that have come in over the last week or so, and I believe that the cutoff time was today at noon. Again, we wish Anna very well in her endeavors. We thank her for everything that she was able to do for the chamber during her time with us, and we look forward to what the future brings. And also, Madam Mayor, from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, we met on Thursday night, and as an update to the work that's being undertaken by the committee, plans are in the work to actively reach out to local chambers and work with the chambers to help recognize the work that businesses have done to meet accessibility requirements and to help businesses that want to make further changes to meet accessibility requirements and recognize the value of being there for those with accommodation needs in terms of the value to their businesses and in terms of it just being the right thing to do. Further to that, a service that the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee does provide on a regular basis is business audits. If any business wants a couple of members of the committee to come and do a review and give advice related to physical environment and also the digital environment, that's a service that's available at no cost. The committee is also planning a networking / best practices event in the future, together with other joint accessibility advisory committees in the region, such as St. Catharines, Welland, Niagara Falls, and the Regional Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee as well. If anyone in council ever has any questions about accessibility, it's a big topic, much like a lot of things in government. It hits on a lot of areas that we deal with on a regular basis. If anybody ever has any questions or suggestions, please reach out to me. I will be the conduit between council and the committee, and I'm happy to do so. Thank you,
very
Madam Mayor.
much. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillors, I have a piece of well, it's an announcement. It's not just a piece of correspondence, it's an announcement. And I received this back in December, and it's regarding Julie Kirkelos, our clerk, who has recently graduated from the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario. And they sent this note along telling us that Julie has successfully completed the intensive process to graduate from the AMCTO, and she is receiving or has received, she's going to tell us tonight whether she's actually has it in hand. It's a tremendous accomplishment. I've spoken to many people over the years, and it's extremely intense. And I think that anybody that has the kind of a full-time job that Ms. Kirkelos has, plus a family to look after, really needs to be given some considerable consideration. So congratulations, Madam Clerk. We're very pleased. You bring a great honor to our community by having this, and for your own personal growth, absolutely. And if you wouldn't mind just coming on and giving us a little bit more information because this is certainly not something that a lot of people have.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, for your kind words and your recognition. It really means a lot. It's a course that I have been in over the last 2 years and a little bit. It's an extreme passion of mine, while contributing to Lincoln at the same time, and connecting with municipalities across Ontario and building a network of relationships has been tremendous. So the Executive Diploma in Municipal Management, it's designed for municipal managers, and it's very comprehensive and allows you to apply what you've learned in everyday situations, enhance skills, bring solutions as a leader and a manager. And it's been extremely educational. And one of the areas of focus for my end of the course report or thesis, it will have you, is the importance of municipal management in civic engagement. So that was a passion of mine as I delved into why it's so important, which is a part of our democracy, especially now more than ever, where the public's trust in all levels of government are being questioned right now, and what we can do to improve that relationship and build trust. So it's been highly educational. I have learned a lot. I continue to learn, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Item number 6, councillors, we're clapping. You can't hear it, but everybody is clapping, and quite rightly so.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now considering item 6.1, special council minutes of December the 21st, 2020. Do members of council have any questions or comments to the minutes? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Mikulik. Approve the minutes of the following meetings of council, special council minutes of December 21st, 2020. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Thank you. Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Houston,
Yes,
and that carries. Thank you.
we have no delegations this evening, and we have no presentations this evening. We'll move on now to item number 9, and we are now considering items 9.1 and 9.2, council information package of December 25th and January 8th. Now, councilors, you're all aware that these are very, very huge packages. And so I'll just ask that you, and I think you're getting pretty slick at this. You can identify the item, and I hope, and I hope you've read them. This isn't an opportunity to have these reports explained, but if you do have a question because you want to move something along, or you want it returned, you want to give some instructions to staff, that is perfectly acceptable. So I'm going to open up first the council correspondence of the week ending December 25th, 2020. And Madam Clerk, who was up first?
We have Councillor Rajima.
Okay, Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's on page 24 of the PDF.
Okay, what is the item? What item is it on the agenda?
It's
On the list.
sorry, I don't know the number, but it's on page 24 of the PDF, and it's about a 200-page report. So it's the one.
Okay, is this the Ottawa report?
No, it's the Linking Niagara Transit Committee report.
Okay, all right. Do you have a specific question?
I do. So, Madam Mayor, the report refers to a deadline date of February 28th, 2021 for municipalities to provide feedback on the proposed governance and financing model for the consolidation of transit in Niagara. So I'm wondering what our plans are in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, I know we have a meeting, so Mr. Kirkopoulos, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Regima, we do have regional staff attending our meeting of council on March 1st, at which time we will have an opportunity to hear both a presentation from regional staff as well as to provide some preliminary comments. Now, no decisions are being made at that particular meeting. It is a chance to just engage in feedback. There will be what the region calls the triple majority that they will be seeking on any transit or on any potential transit changes, but that won't happen until the summer. But notwithstanding the deadline in that particular proposal, Councillor Regima, we will have regional staff here on March 1st, and that deadline is appropriate for them to engage in that feedback. A number of things with respect to COVID and timelines that the region pushed that back a bit.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Mayor, just a question of clarification to the CAO. Did you say that the regional staff will be coming to council or meeting with you as CAOs?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Regima, they'll be coming to our committee to speak with council. They want to engage local councils, to hear from local councils what their thoughts are. There's also a separate process that'll unfold as it relates to connecting with local staff as well, which we'll be doing at one of our senior leadership team meetings in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pachariva, please. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to speak to the following item of correspondence contained in December's 21st to 25th package. Number 1 from West Lincoln, found on page 14. And number 7, found on page 270 from Waynfleet with respect to the request to the Niagara region to declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. And they had been originally supported at Niagara Falls and Thorold, which was the reference piece. Unfortunately, I missed Mr. Sousa's presentation to our council on this matter on December 7th, as my wife had brain surgery and I was at home convalescing. But if I had been there, I would have gladly moved his motion and would like to do so this evening. The premise behind having the region declare a state of emergency is for the province to ask them to monitor the situation and in turn receive funding to support these items that the mayor often refers to as the social determinants of health. To date, Mr. Seuss has been successful in getting 10 of the 12 Niagara municipalities to support his motion and will be in front of Welland Council tomorrow night. And I feel it's time that we do the same and support his motion, and that way he's got unanimous support when presenting at the region. If the region decides to change the motion in some way, shape, or form, so be it, but let's keep it intact in the state that it's in. My volunteerism as a board member for the past 7 years on the Wise Guys Charity Fund and as Grants Committee Chair, I have witnessed firsthand the organizations in Niagara seeking funds to help eradicate this situation. The Hope Center, Project Share, Community Care St. Catharines Thorold, Community Care West Niagara, Niagara Falls Soup Kitchen, Out of the Cold, Socks for Change, Start Me Up Niagara, and Open Arms Mission, just to name a few. Participating at the Lions Food Drive for over 15 years and being on the board of Community Care of West Niagara, we've witnessed the rats have given me an insight into these topics. The rash of suicides that we experience on the Burgoyne Bridge and the various homeless encampments you find along Highway 406 or in Niagara Falls and various other locations throughout the region have made it very apparent to me that we have a real crisis here in Niagara. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but I don't need a staff report to tell me so. I appreciate Mr. Seuss's effort in no longer standing for the status quo, because that clearly isn't working. He's effectively trying to become an agent of change. I personally know at least a dozen friends that have experienced one or more forms of addiction and witnessed how it tore families apart. I'm not asking that we look at all of these together, but look at them individually. My fellow councillors, if this is foreign to you, consider yourself fortunate. It's not a municipal funding issue, nor a regional one. They administer the funds that they receive from the province. But by declaring it an emergency, it shines light on the issues. And the hope is that we will get more funding to combat the situation. We're not looking at them individually, but collectively. And we can't be afraid to talk about these social items that are often left in the shadows in the very hope that if they're out of sight, they're out of mind. We took a bold initiative a couple years ago in contributing to Pathstone mental health clinics held weekly at the Fleming Library. This is simply another step in that journey. I must give full credit to Chief McCullough in his open letter to the residents of Niagara on the weekend with respect to the local COVID-19 pandemic. But I feel it's totally appropriate in this context, and I'm gladly going to use it. Leadership is about having the courage to take a stand, to do the right thing, and to be an example to others. On December 7th, we were asked to be leaders, and I'm asking you to do that tonight and support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, in doing so, Councillor, you're lifting it. I didn't hear you use those words. Is that your intention?
Yes, and if I know in the interim, staff was asked to go and look for some additional information. So I mean, if Mr. Kirkopoulos has anything that he could shed a light on or enlighten us, I think that would be worthwhile as well. So yeah, I'd like it lifted if I may.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, before I go to Mr. Kirkopoulos, where on the agenda then will we deal with this?
As soon as the CAO provides an update, I understand that Councillor Rajima was approached by Councillor Pachariva to second his request to endorse this item. And so after the CAO's update, we can go forward with a motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kirkopoulos, please.
Through you, Madam Clerk, to Councillor Pachariva and all members of council. While staff haven't I think prepared or started the semblance of preparing a report, I know our staff, Ms. McKay, did reach out to regional counterparts in community services to start the data gathering phase. But I think I'd make a couple of comments. And in so much as over the last number of weeks, as we dealt with West Lincoln Memorial Hospital and the advocacy at the region with respect to that, mental health became a topic as we went through the particular matrix that received a lot of attention and a lot of comments. There is a regional presentation, I will also add, that is coming to council in the next quarter that I think will also shed some light on this. I think there's a jurisdictional clarification that we can probably make. And I think Councillor Pachariva did begin to make that jurisdictional clarification on the role municipalities have versus the region has versus the province has. And earlier today, an email from Councillor Foster, yourself, Mary Easton, from Adrian Jugley, the community or the General Manager, Commissioner of Community Services at the region, was provided where she spoke, I think, very much to that particular piece. But I think the comments I'd make to council, and it was highlighted that we've been working with Pathstone, we've been working with other mental health agencies within our own facilities, but the role that we have, I would say, is equipping some of our frontline service providers with tools. It's stigma, so I think talking about it's important, and I think Mr. Seuss attending and what we're doing today helps in those particular areas. Contributing to mental health promotion is another thing that municipalities can do. And of course, the collaboration that often happens between health, social services, education, and how those supports come together. So I would say beyond just, I think, endorsing a motion that calls for an emergency, which sometimes I think achieves bringing awareness to a particular topic, I'd suggest some of the things I want to come back to council with and on are how can we actually do things here locally? How can we actually start to make a move on mental health beyond just declaring an emergency? And so I've highlighted, I think, a couple areas where we as a municipality can promote collaboration, can start speaking about it more publicly. But those are some of the preliminary comments that I think I'd offer to Councillor Pachariva and all members of council as it relates to this particular topic. It is an important one. I think that we've had staff that have been touched by it. I think all of us know people that have been touched by it or know of people that have been touched by it. And so if this chooses to raise some awareness, I think from that perspective, it doesn't inhibit what we're doing. But I would say going that extra step further is probably a step in that right direction. But again, looking to council for direction specifically as it relates to that.
All right, Mr. Kirkopoulos, could I just clarify, if we pass this motion, endorse the request that's been made. Did I hear you correctly that in the future, this year, I don't think you said when, that there would be a report coming forward that's more Lincoln specific in terms of things that we can do?
Through you, or to you, Madam Mayor, I would suggest that, yes, we will be coming forward. I know I highlighted we've got a regional presentation coming in Q2. I think, if council wants to add a little bit to that particular support of that motion, I think ensuring that when we come back, we talk about those very simple things that we can do that in some ways are communicative in nature, or that are promoting collaboration between various agencies. I think that's where we can maybe have an input and an effect on what's going on. If I look at what council supported in terms of putting monies towards attracting Pathstone to our community for the first year, and that was important seed money, and then the private sector through Court Holdings took over that as a sponsorship. Those are the sorts of things I think we can do that are tangible beyond just the approval of this particular motion. But yes, I would suggest that we'll be coming back to council in Q2.
Okay, very good. And so I'm going to go to Councillor McPherson first and then Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just wanted to make a comment with regards to the councillor's motion, and that is that it's unfortunate that the councillor wasn't able to make it to council that night, because I think we did have a discussion around this very important issue. And our decision at that time was to seek out a report from staff. That was, I think, a number of things. First of all, Lincoln-centric, and secondly, the whole understanding of a state of emergency and what does that mean? How does that, what triggers does that push? So I'm not going to support the councillor's motion tonight, and that's not to say that I won't support a state of emergency call once we have that report. So it's more of a seeking more information than just going out and approving the request for a state of emergency as we discussed the night that Mr. Seuss came to council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Russell, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, my commentary is very, very similar to Councillor McPherson in that, again, we're seeking at the last meeting to have updated data to find out, again, what the Lincoln specific details were, and also how it does unfold across the region, and also determine what that escalation factor has been, either COVID related if possible, or an escalation over the last couple of years where the declaration of a state of emergency is necessary. And again, as Councillor McPherson mentioned, to determine exactly what that entails. So again, I'm in the same ship as Councillor McPherson, that I would prefer to wait till that report is available.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Brunet.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to be brief. I, as well, was under the weather December the 7th, so I did not sit through Stephen Seuss's presentation, but I've done my best to get up to speed on this subject, and I appreciate the mayor passing along that information from the region late today. And, I don't think there's any of us that would ever say that homelessness and mental health or addiction do not exist in our municipality within the region. We're not that naive. We know it exists. We've got a housing task force that is working on it. And as the CAO clearly articulated, this council felt mental health was important to have Pathstone within our Fleming Center walls. But I think what we need to really focus on this evening is this just a symbolic effort? Is it about raising awareness? One could look at the Municipal Act and find out where, our responsibilities are, but, I don't think we need to do that. But there are general powers and sections and spheres of jurisdiction in that Municipal Act. And I think we need to stay in our lane sometime. As Councillor McPherson, made a great point. What does the state of emergency really mean? I spoke to my niece, who's a doctor, that practices medicine in the province of Ontario. She tells me that the hospital beds are filled now with people that are waiting in long-term care in retirement homes. Is this state of emergency going to flood the rooms of our hospitals with mental addiction patients and awareness? And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but what does a state of emergency mean when you declare it? So I would rather focus, if this is just a symbol, I'll support it, but I think we're bigger than that. I think what we need to be looking at is, what is this council and what is this municipality willing to do to really make a difference? Whether it's on universal basic income, whether it's on the banning of plastics, or whether it's about mental health, addiction, and homelessness. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brunet. And we have Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Patriva, to the motion. I struggle with the wording, that state of emergency as well. State of emergency it's a means for government to access extraordinary powers to act quickly and easily with a crisis. And I have no doubt that since the onset of the COVID virus, that I'm seeing more tents set up, I'm seeing more addiction, I'm seeing the stats, I'm reading about it in the papers. I just, traditionally, when you declare a state of emergency, I believe that, that puts us in a position where we have to formulate a plan to deal with it as either a municipality, as a region, or as a province. So are we more or less advocating, or are we acknowledging, or are we trying to bring forward a recognition of a crisis that's at hand? And I just don't know if by declaring a state of emergency, that's the accurate way of delivering that message. So I'm not in supportive of the motion as it is written currently. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Councillor Patriva.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah. So it's, and of course, I didn't write this motion. It's a motion that was presented to council. Like Councillor Brunet said, it's more of symbolic. These aren't mutually inclusive. It's not the state of emergency motion and then what we're going to do here. And staff is going to come back in March with a made in Lincoln solution. So I'm not asking you to look at both of them as mutually exclusive. This is more of a symbolic motion to raise awareness to the issue regionally. And then staff will come back in March with what we can do here. Right? So it's, and I think that's where the rub is coming. And to Councillor McPherson's point, I may not have attended the meeting, but I sat through and watched it on the weekend. So I heard what went on and I saw what transpired. So I thought maybe my personal experiences could raise the awareness of the symbolic gesture. So then, it shines that regional light on it. And then staff will come back after we hear the presentation from the region in March. Mr. Kirkopoulos said Q2, address the issues here. We've got the homeless, the Affordable Housing Task Force here. These issues are here, but we'll address them separately. So.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Benjima, I understand you are the seconder. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Did you want to speak again?
Yes, I'm going to speak. So I listened to everyone and I appreciate Councillor Patriva bringing this forward. The presentation that came to us in December was very interesting and thought-provoking. And as my role in the Housing Task Force and also meeting monthly during the first 6 months of the pandemic with Councillor Timmers and Director McKay and Sarah Ann, we spoke to a lot of different people and we have a pretty good sense of the kind of issues that are going on, not just in Lincoln, but in Niagara. There are concerns that existed long before COVID. related to mental health. And mental health is what I'm thinking of particularly, although all these social issues, they're all sort of in a big cloud together. But I think that anything that we can do to raise awareness is important. And I think I'm totally in support after listening to everyone here. I understand the concerns, but I also, I understand that this original initiation, or this initially started with a counselor on Niagara Falls Council whose son took his own life. And so he clearly has an understanding of the issues. And I also have a friend whose son took his own life just less than 3 years ago. And I think we all have connections in that way and personal experiences. So I listened to Councillor Patriva, and I think I'm in support of supporting this to raise awareness. And I think it's time, and it's a good idea. And I appreciate everybody's comments, and I appreciate the CAO's offer. And I have total faith in that he's going to look into ways to implement these some actions that we can take locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Deputy Mayor Reimer.
Thank you, Mary Easton. Just a comment, I don't want to go over things that have been said. These three issues touch me pretty deeply. They are serious issues. But I would echo the thoughts of Councillor McPherson, Councillor Renee. There's several solid points raised in the email that we received late today from Mayor Easton and from Regional Councillor Foster that I had time to digest, and I will be voting against this motion, but only to wait for a staff report, and we can make, I think, a more informed and better decision at that time. Thank you, Mayor Easton.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Patriva, do you have your hand up to speak?
I do, Your Worship. Just one final point. I mean, if it's about a symbolic motion, it would be nothing more fitting than to pass this on Blue Monday, where we're supposed to raise awareness to this. So it's and again, councillors, I'm not asking for you to look at this mutually exclusive. Look, we're going to separate that. So, you know, they're not tied together.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm very sorry that I didn't have the presence of mind to send this to you a little earlier. Councillor Foster asked for the report, and he circulated it on the 11th. Of course, we had many fish to fry that around that time. So I just want to draw your attention. I'm sure it's not going to make any difference, but I agree with the comments that have been said. And however, for me, on the page that's entitled Memo First Draft Volume 2, in the second paragraph and beyond that, Commissioner Jugley talks about quantitative and qualitative analysis. This is exactly what I have been talking about for the better part of 40 years. And finally, we actually have people writing deliberate reports where they speak to the determinants of health and actually how they're going to determine what the priorities are. And that has been done. So that tells me that at the region, there's a deliberateness about what they're doing. And this isn't even under community services. The mental health programs come under public health, but here we are with them as item number 3. So I'm supporting this because I want to encourage the efforts that have been made at the regional level in terms of identifying what the problems are, quantifying and qualifying it, and doing more analysis, because this is exactly what we need. We have to be able to have this kind of information available to us to make decisions. Now, I have trouble with these declarations of emergency, because I could be bringing you a declaration of emergency regarding long-term care. I think we could all write that one. And it's very important because we have some really serious problems ahead of us in that area as well. So where do you begin? So symbolically, I think this has reached such emotional heights all across the region. You will recall that councillors approved a massive amount of money in the range of $4 million to put protective barriers on Burgoyne Bridge. That money really should have been going into programs if there had been a more robust system of programming. And so I don't really want to see, I don't consider the staff report coming to council as a delay. That will allow us to be more deliberate in our decisions, just like we are with housing. And I'm supporting the motion only because I have faith that the region have reached a point that they can take this information forward and really make those programs count at this time when so many people are dealing with mental health problems strictly related to COVID. Do I desire these emergency declarations? I don't. I do not believe that this is necessarily the right way to go. But when you don't have any other choice, when there's no other options out there, then you look to those tools that are available to you. And that's what has happened here. This is what Wayne has done. Thank you very much. And I have Councillor Brunet and Councillor Njima. Did you want to speak again? You did? All right. Councillor Brunet, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So through you and to you, Madam Mayor, I appreciate your comments. And I guess I would ask, and again, I speak to the same thing that, this isn't about not wanting to support it symbolically or raising awareness.
Yeah.
But I think this council is much better than that. And I think we want more than just to rubber stamp something. I guess I would question, the town of Pelham and the town of Waynfleet that have endorsed this. Okay, they've endorsed it, but what are they planning on doing about it? So through you, Madam Mayor, and to you, Madam Mayor, as a regional councillor, you're involved in the regional budget and you're discussing these items. Well, what kind of money is the region of Niagara putting aside in their 2021 budget to address mental illness, addiction, and homelessness?
Well, I can tell you that there is a very deliberate program available for homelessness. And I would say that the mental health issues are less well-defined, and therefore we certainly need to bring that to people's attention. And I also think that addiction falls into that category as well. There are some programs available. It's a matter of how those programs are going to be expanded. Now, the money for this, and I think this is the important fact of it, Councillor, the money for these programs comes from the province. And so as money is available, the programs are developed. And that's what will continue here. And I think that, Commissioner Jugley has explained that quite in quite a lot of detail in her report. So that's as far as I can go with that now. But it's not that the problem is entirely ignored. It's a matter of being more deliberate about the programs that are coming forward.
Can I just have Councillor Brunet, you still have your hand up. Did you still have something to add? Okay. Councillor Regima, you were next in the queue. Did you have something to add?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Quite quickly, I just want to thank Councillor Foster for following up. We had, sorry, I pressed a funny button. Okay, we had asked Councillor Foster at the last meeting, or I think it was a subsequent meeting as well, whether this issue was coming to regional council. And I think he followed up on that right after and asked questions. So I want to thank him for that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I don't know which councillor was first.
Sure, we have Councillor McPherson up next.
Go ahead, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I won't take too much time. And I just want to make a comment that, when Mr. Seuss came to council, we discussed it that night, and at no time did we talk about a symbolic gesture. And, we talked very seriously about putting some effort into this and really understanding what we were signing up for when we supported a declaration of emergency. And so I think we've got to be careful in changing gears tonight and, just moving to, we're going to do this symbolic gesture, and then we're going to call a fulsome report and discussion at a later date. I think, if that report is 6 months off or a year off, then maybe we do need to make a decision tonight. But, if that report is within the next month or two, I think it's in our best interest to hold off until that. I think the region's probably got a lot of support from the various municipalities to continue what they're doing. And I think we need to look at that report and have a discussion that night and make our decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you very much for a second opportunity to speak. There is no doubt that there's this crisis that we're dealing with, and there's this increase. But as Councillor McPherson has just mentioned, we were brought. This was brought to our attention. We're awaiting a report, and this is almost, in my mind, like a replication or a duplication of a conversation that we may have already had, and we haven't had access to this report that we've been waiting for. That's more of a Lincoln geared solution. And, by voting against this, should I vote that way tonight? It's just me wanting to wait for this report and a show of unity, or, I don't know if, is that what we have to do now with everything? I don't, without seeing the motion even on my screen, I struggle with that. So that's just the further comments I have. I'd feel more comfortable waiting till March. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. All good comments. I wanted to just listen to the discussion before I spoke. I'm literally sitting on the fence with this. I feel like declaring a state of emergency, lumping this all together, not saying we know that these are all serious issues that we face in every community. I'm not quite sure if this is going to achieve what the motion is, what they're hoping for by supporting this. I think these are provincially funded. These are all separately massive issues to try to focus on, all lumped together. We could declare a state of emergency in long-term care, as the mayor has said earlier. We could declare a state of emergency on childcare. I don't know if this is really the right approach and if it's necessary. And what are the municipalities that are supporting this planning to do? What are the next steps? If anything, what we get from this is a conversation and awareness, which is great that people are now talking about it and thinking about it, but I'm not quite sure if this is the right approach. So I personally need more information. There's no data here. There's no information other than this motion that's sitting in front of us. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So just my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all of the speakers, Madam Clerk.
So we have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor Rajima, that council for the town of Lincoln support correspondence from the city of Niagara Falls dated September 17, 2020, requesting that the Niagara region to declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. So I'm going to call the vote, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Brunet.
No.
Councillor McPherson.
No.
Councillor Mikulik.
No.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
No.
Councillor Rajima.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
No.
Counselor Timmers,
No.
and Mayor Easton.
No.
And that vote is lost.
All right, but the vote may be lost, but this is coming forward again, and I expect that we will have quite an extensive discussion, and at that time, we can address a Lincoln focus. Thank you very much. I don't know, I'm going to, if Councillor Foster would like to make some comments on this, I'm going to give him that opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I took away from the last meeting when this was discussed. I did outreach to Adrian and asked her to come back with discussion on this, and I'm glad it was of some value to you guys. I'm just wondering, and I'm listening to the discussion that's going on. I think what you guys are really trying to do is support what Mr. Seuss is trying to do, but you really don't want to do the declaration. You do have an opportunity to just basically say in the end you support the presentation, but as you're going on, you'll have to make your decision once you guys have all the facts straight for your council. So. This isn't really a high priority item at Niagara Region at this point, just to let you know. And in fact, it hasn't been presented whatsoever. And I think, Mayor Easton, you would know this was presented, I believe, on the last term of council by Mr. Seuss as well, and was turned down at Niagara Region when it was going through. So anyway, there's lots of history. There's lots of pieces of the puzzle with this. But you guys have had a really good discussion on this, so thank you.
All right, thank you very much, councillors. And now we'll move forward to, I'll ask if there's any other documents within this December 25th information package that anyone wishes to bring forward. I don't see any names at the moment. And I'm going to move on quickly to the January 8th correspondence. Again, we have 8 items on here. Are there any councillors that have issues that they would like to address? I see none. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor Russell. Receive and file the following council information packages. Council information package December 25th, 2020. Council information package January the 8th, 2021. I'll now ask the clerk to call out the vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Councillor Mikulik?
Yes.
thank you. Councillor
Thank
Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that carries. Thank you.
All right, councillors, item number 10, recommendations from standing committees. We have none this evening. Item 11, notice of motion. Councillor Rajima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the last couple of years, we've had a number of conversations with particular residents about the problem of recycling items being put out to the road and then just blowing over and spreading throughout our neighborhoods, onto people's properties, out into fields, into our parks, catch basins, stormwater management ponds, streams, and lakes. There have been a number of really commendable efforts by residents that Councillor Russell and I have been communicating with that go out themselves and clean up. And I know a number of people have moved on to containing their recycling items within plastic bags and putting them out to the curb that way. I know I've been doing that myself, and I've heard a number of council members saying that they're doing that. And a number of people in the community have been doing that as well, but that has its own costs. Besides the fact that not everyone is doing that, the bags themselves have a cost, and the bags themselves are an item that's considered waste and is costful to recycle. There is also a cost to purchasing them, and not everyone has the budget to be able to purchase the bags. There's no question that blowing recycling is a problem. The question is what to do about it. I know that there have been discussions back and forth with the region. We brought this issue up when the region came to us to talk about their new waste pickup schedule with the new contractor and the whole waste diversion effort behind that. And I have to say it's gone extremely well, and hats off to them for their work that they've put into that. The hope was that that effort would result in people doing more recycling and more composting. And again, my understanding is that that's working well. So hats off to them for pulling that off. Fact still remains, though, that recycling items are blowing out of the boxes and around the neighborhood, and we really should try to do something about it. I've heard every member of this council and the mayor vent their frustrations about the problem. And so this motion that I would bring forward would be to ask staff to look into options that we can do possibly at a lower tier level as a kind of pilot project to help people contain their recycling items. And to get a little bit more specific, there was an information shared on the weekend about a kind of net that would wrap over top of a recycling bin and secure on the other side. It kind of looked like a fishing net. And Councillor Foster shared that with us, and I believe Councillor Patchariv and Councillor Brunet as well. And this would be a permanent fixture on the recycling bins. And the and I think they're being used in England right now. I think Regional Councillor Foster said. Anyway, that's just one idea, but so it's easy to turn a blind eye to these things and say that it's not our responsibility because it falls under the jurisdiction of the region's services, but it is our problem. And hoping that this future motion will bring some information back that will help us maybe work with a partner and maybe get some funding for a pilot project such as this. And if we can show that it really works, maybe that will support and help the region to be able to justify an expenditure for this on a region-wide basis, if it makes sense. So I'm going to draft this motion and have it ready for our special council meeting on February 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a clarification, that meeting will be on Monday, February the 8th.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, we have reports of municipal officers, and I'll start with the mayor's report. I'm going to focus this evening on COVID-related communications and the mandatory stay-home orders of last Thursday. Very interesting, councillors and ladies and gentlemen, the response that we've been seeing from some people about the reports that are coming out, whether it's Premier Ford's or Chief McCullough's over the weekend, which I feel was very, very timely. But it is a fact that this these messages are coming out. There is some frustration behind them. They're difficult, they're somber. This new modeling is really about a really significant and horrific spike in pain and suffering and needless death that's in the coming months and weeks if we don't act now. And we've been saying this for quite a long time now, if we don't act now. And I don't want to miss the point that there are a lot of people that started acting a long time ago. And I want to thank them very much because they're not only looking after their own welfare, they're looking after their families and they're looking after their neighborhoods. And we had the state of emergency that came out last Thursday with the mandatory stay-at-home orders, and that created another big wave of confrontation and frustration. And I encourage you that unless you're going out for groceries and medical appointments, that you should stay home. And going for groceries means, of course, that you should be going down to the local restaurant and getting curb pickup, because they certainly need a lot of assistance, because the longer there's non-compliance, the longer these mandatory orders are going to stay in place. So we all need to be part of the solution in driving this pandemic off. And so it's a mystery to me and to, I'm sure, many watching or taking part this evening, that when you choose to deliberately ignore health protocols, maybe you need to take a really hard look at your own decisions and why you're not adhering to provincial guidelines. What is in it for you? Second wave of the virus has already claimed more of our precious seniors population than the first wave. The data indicates more than double the amount of people will succumb to COVID-19 in 2021. And our small businesses are barely getting by. It's becoming a real serious problem for them. Another lengthy lockdown is certainly not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. The consequences are truly very dire. I'm sorry that some people feel that this is a big conspiracy, or that wearing a mask following health advice is an affront to your personal freedoms. And I do urge you to please focus on the health and well-being of all in the community. If you're not concerned about your children, there are many of us who lose sleep at night wondering about them, wondering about your parents, wondering about your grandparents. I'm sorry that this is not a priority for you. So please stop spreading that sort of information because it's not helpful.
Yeah.
We're at a cliff where our healthcare system will be overwhelmed and a death toll that will rival anything outside of the Great Wars is going to be experienced. Decisions will have to be made on whether someone lives or dies as ICU beds across the province are at capacity. And I'd just like to point out to you that today, the ministry has announced that they're going to spend another parcel of money for beds, 500 more beds, because there aren't enough ICU beds. And when you are discharged from ICU, you need to be in an acute medical unit. So here's more money involved because the situation is not lessening. In fact, it is getting worse. In total, then, the announcements for today added up to $2.5 billion for this year's investment. 500 new beds today, a total of 3,100 beds funded by the province as part of the COVID-19 response. Think about that. Beds are one thing. Staffing for beds is an entirely different matter. So these are things that I hope that I can impress upon those of you who don't think this is a problem that you need to pay attention to. So here's the question. Does what we are doing right now, the way we're thinking right now, defining who we are? Is this what we want our legacy to be, where we depend on conspiracy theories and selfish views? Or do we understand that there's a purposeful task ahead of us? There could be some very dark days ahead. And I'm sorry to say, and it may sound very dramatic, but it is where we find ourselves. And so for those of you who have been continuing to sacrifice and do everything that you can, I thank you. I applaud you. We all on council applaud you. However, you're not the problem. And so we need to look to those who are not paying attention. Now, the vaccine system, which is very efficient, I might add, it's really for the vaccines that are available, things are just moving along extremely well. It's a very, very well-oiled machine. It's very frustrating, Dr. Hergy said today, that vaccines to Niagara are being reduced again. And we've only really just started. And we're directing the vaccine where we have to and where it will save the most lives, long-term care and retirement home residents. However, understand that it's Pfizer's European production facility as it retools that's creating the delay. And so they, in order for them to have increased future capacity, there is this bump in the road. And so we look forward to, we know that we have a good system in place. We know that that system works well. It's really a matter of getting that, getting those vaccines into the area. Now today, the president and interim CAO of Niagara Health Systems said that with 53 active outbreaks of the virus in the region, 81 COVID positive patients receiving care in hospital today, as well as 252.1 cases a week per 1,000 population. The positivity rate is 7.6%. So the COVID activity in Niagara is considered to be very serious, and we are all of us on regional council, the mayors, all of councils, we are all advocating through our letters for a greater supply of both Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. We've had no announcement yet about Moderna coming into this area at all. So I ask you all, and I remind you that as neighbors and good people living in the town of Lincoln, that you set the best example of health to everyone, because we are all trying to be good neighbors, and children are being encouraged, and their encouragement includes the well-being of the community and how adults set examples to them. We need to keep this in mind, because it's their ability to observe our example, which is, whether it's good or bad, is going to depend on how they behave as good citizens in the future. So thank you very much for allowing us to come into your homes, and thank you, councillors, for your attention. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor McPherson to receive and file as information the Mayor's report on January 18th, 2021. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklik,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes.
that carries.
And now we're considering item 12.2. If Councillor Rob Foster, Regional Councillor Rob Foster, is here with us this evening. Councillor Foster, if you would come forward, please.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. And so, yes, I was speaking a little earlier. I just, going back to Councillor Ranjima's items around waste management, I'll be perfectly frank. I haven't been terribly happy with the fact that staff have kind of not gone down the road with doing having some sort of lids or nets or whatever the case may be. So I'm looking forward to seeing your motion coming through, and when you guys actually have the waste management people in, when they talk about it, I think that's definitely worthwhile discussion. And just to let you know, the stats since things have changed over have been quite remarkable. The diversion rate has been exceptionally good. We get reports occasionally at our public works meetings. We didn't have one this past, but we did have one in December, and we'll be getting one next month. So anyway, the numbers are looking good as we're moving along. And just a quick comment on the mayor's commentary. I did send a link to all of you, but for those that are watching and are interested, there is a page on the Niagara Region website now that does talk about vaccinations and where we're at. Are we happy with the level that we're at? Well, we're happy with the level that we're at with the number of vaccinations that we have received and the amount of items that have gone out. But we're looking forward to working with the province and gearing up in these areas. They do have it broken down by the long-term care homes, etc., that have actually been done as well. And that will also be the area that we have information coming up on when we start moving towards public, more general public vaccinations. But that isn't going to be happening right away. I'm sure we're probably looking at a few months out for sure. But anyway, that website should help you. I just wanted to talk about some good news, actually, and hopefully it's going to be, even more positive news as we go on for the rest of this week. We had the discussion on the hospital funding this past Thursday at our budget committee. It was a long meeting. I know a couple of you were following along with that particular meeting as we went through it. At the end, it was voted at a 19-6 vote to approve 12.6 million for the hospital. That, if you want to look at what the equation is and looking at formulas, that's 21% of the ask that has been put there, and also that would incur 100% of the matrix that was put into place. Had quite a number of arguments and discussions about the matrix. I know you guys don't like getting reports at the last minute. We kind of got reports at the last minute as well on this. I would say pretty much to a T, the West Niagara councillors and many of the others were not happy with the fact that the criteria that were being put in place really weren't appropriate in many cases to the Grimsby Hospital. So anyway, so we shall go through that this week. I just want to do a couple of quick shout outs with that. Councillor Brunet, all the work that you did, committee work with the hospital. CAO Karkopoulos, always doing yeoman's work on these things. Thank you very much. And Mayor Easton, of course, for leading the charge and clearly being a huge advocate for all of us as we've gone through this. So now, as some people have said, now it's important for us to bring home the bacon, I guess, is the proper expression. So we're going to be working at that this week. Just to also give you a couple of items, there was a budget discussion went on about a permanent supportive housing facility, a 24-hour a day support going with it at our budget meeting. It's funds that have come from the province. We made a decision to do an allocation of just a little over 1 million towards this. And now whether this actually gets spent this year is another story. But we've allocated that so that work can be done by staff to go and put the facility in place. So we shall see where this goes. And again, you know, the entire issue of homelessness, around mental health, around you know, the fact that we need more affordable housing. These are pretty critical items, and the region has been making a lot of moves on a lot of files in these areas. So anyway, long and the short of it is that those monies have been set aside. The budget itself currently is coming in at 2.8%. That is going to be discussed Thursday afternoon, starting at 3. My expectation, and I'd say there's probably about a 98% chance that there's a mayor or two will want to have that reduced by approximately 8.1% to try and drive it down to below 2% coming out of reserves. I gotta say, I'm not so sure that that's terribly wise. The reserves, unlike the town of Lincoln, which have always had very healthy reserves and have sort of met the general criteria that should be followed, the reserves at Niagara Region are not quite as healthy. They've been used for quite a number of years for funding projects that hadn't typically gone through the budget process. So now I'm going to throw out there's approximately 20 million sitting in the stabilization to make it similar to what ours is at the town of Lincoln. But you know, standard practices that should be in the range of about $44 to $54 million as the quote unquote emergency fund. So anyway, we're going to see as that goes on. A lot of very positive things have gone on. The biggest increase that we have seen is the item that came through with the police. That's come in at 4.3%. Both Mayor Easton and I had comments on that when that was originally coming in and through. We really like the programs that it is that they're putting in place. Little disappointed, though, the figures that are involved with it. And the other issue is that we may have a revenue problem with the casinos in Niagara Falls. The region does receive a payment back in and through from the city of Niagara Falls to help with the policing, and it's fees that are coming from the casinos, but obviously they've been closed. So anyway, we shall see and what happens with those revenue figures. That's one of the questions that we've outlined for staff and we'll be discussing further. And I just, on my report that I gave to you guys, I just restated the capital items. We originally talked about those back in October, but I just put them on here so that they're there so you guys know what it is that's coming along with the capital items at Niagara Region. So, and with that, I think I'm good. I thank you very much, Mayor Easton.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, do you have any comments or any, do you have any questions of Councillor Foster? I see Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Foster. Rob, thank you for your diligence in reporting to council on a regular basis. Just have one quick question. So you mentioned briefly about the police budget coming in at 4.3%. So I had the opportunity, Mayor Easton invited me, I believe it was about a year ago this time, and had a meeting in her office with the Police Services Board Chair last year. And one of the big discussions at that point was getting more feet on the street in terms of more policing in the region. So I'm just wondering if maybe either through either yourself, Councillor Foster, or Madam Mayor, whoever's got the information, might be able to tell us what that 0.3% equates to in feet on the street.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll start and then you can add in. Excellent question, Tony. The reality on that is that the 4.3% is hugely made up of increased salaries that are going on. There was 40 additional policemen were being brought into play, and a number of that is now hitting into the salary structure, and hence doing some pushing up of the overall values. There's also some accounting for a union agreement that's going into place as well. So that's the single biggest areas. It's not like as if there's going to be a massive piece of equipment or something like that that's being bought this year out of their budget. You know, one can be disappointed when they do come in with a value higher. But the discussion that went on at the meeting, and there was many who were making very strong cases that this is one that we're just going to have to agree with. And by the way, the other thing too with the police budget is we have extremely little to do with the police budget. It comes to Niagara Region basically as a whole saying this is what we expect the region to be paying. We can. I'm going to be kind of colloquial here, you know, whine and complain all we want, but the reality is that based on legislation and various things, the police budget is pretty much out of our hands. Last year we pushed back on some capital items and those got removed. But generally speaking, you know, we're expecting that police board is going to come in with a solid budget as we're going on. So anyway, thank you for the question.
So Councillor Brunet, you'll remember that you and I had that conversation with the chair, and you'll remember that I asked him the question about how many police officers it takes to cover all the non-productive hours. So that's all the vacation, it's sick time, it's court time, it's maternity leaves, it's whatever. And he told me that I believe the number was between 40 and 50. And I said, well, then you should really start bringing budgets forward that are realistic, because we're looking for boots on the ground, and we're not going to have that if we're just constantly operating 50 people behind. So I wish I could tell you that we have 50 extra players, but we don't, because even last year, you know, by the time they get them coming through the system, you know, and that's just really, we've realized that this year. However, I do think that there were other people besides myself that were encouraging it. We want police in the community. That's what we want. We have a great relationship with our staff sergeants. Even though they change, they rotate. We have a great relationship with them. The staff have a great relationship with them. And we have accomplished a great deal. And it really has been at the community level. And we need that in a growing community. So is it right to put another 50 in there to balance it out? Well, it would be the ideal world, but even I have to be patient. So I think there's been very good progress made. And Chief McCullough is a tremendous leader, and that goes a long way in itself in terms of how strong all of this gets implemented.
Can I just add to it? And I was just thinking to Councillor Bernay, one of the things that I think Lincoln Council needs to advocate for, and working with your compatriots in Grimsby and West Lincoln, is, we need to be looking into the future. And to be perfectly frank, I think we're somewhat underrepresented with policing in Niagara West. So I think every opportunity you guys get when you're talking to, get the chief of police in for meetings, when you're talking to police board members, hammer away at Mayor Easton and myself with these things as well. But there really has to be a thinking process, because West Niagara does and is one of the fastest growing areas of Niagara. And we certainly want to see that police representation is similar in nature to what the actual increase is going on here.
That's great. I appreciate both of your comments very much.
I just like to, the arbitrations took up, I think, the whole first term of regional council that I was on. There was a great deal of talk about war chests that needed to be created to fight the amendment, the arbitrations. What a waste of time that was. It really didn't accomplish anything. And we spent all those years cutting budgets and playing around with zero-based budgets, which I have absolutely no regard for. I've seen what they do. And so we talked about that war chest, and there were many of us that were really quite naive about all of this. And we thought we were doing the right thing. And actually, in fact, all we did was decimate the reserve funds, and because we were hoping that there would be other methods to achieve these things, but they just are not there. They don't seem to materialize in the way that private enterprise would like us to think that they would, and that's where a lot of the pressure was coming from. So I see us right back. We're back a bit to square one, and it's too bad, because we could have had those officers on the ground. It would have been much better for our communities. Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you. Through you to Councillor Foster. With regards to the police budget and questions that may have been asked, has there been ever any discussion about whether or not we look at or consider having non-police officers, let's say directing traffic or closing roads or doing these sorts of things security-wise? And the reason why I bring this up is because I remember that there was an incident in the Jordan Hollow, and they had closed King Street on both sides, Bridge, 21st Street, and I'm doing the math, and it was closed for about 4 hours, and there's probably 6 or 8 police officers, just basically closing roads. And has there ever been a discussion about possibly, creating like a subsection of the police force that deals with these sort of things?
Madam Mayor, what I will say with this, first of all, we're always looking to improvements with all of these things. And so, Councillor Mikulik, I think you've kind of accidentally gone into an area that that actually an awful lot has been done over the last couple of years. Police were being dedicated to doing business licenses, for instance, through their offices. And that's been shifted to the region now, and they're doing that. So non-policing staff are doing that. Why it was policing in the first place is beyond me. But anyway, they're looking at a variety of things like that. They're always looking to try and streamline the administration that's going on as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting thought. Again, you know, I'm to a certain degree handcuffed almost as much as you are to actually make decisions in those areas, but certainly getting information or talking to people when you have the opportunity, you know, it's interesting to find out where they're really going to. And just a last point on it too is that technology, which is the big issue that's been coming in through these solutions, is changing quite dramatically as well. So we'll see over the next couple of years where all of this goes to.
Appreciate that answer.
Councillor Michalek, you could look back in 2018, 17, 18 to the present time through the Solicitor General's office. And I remember Councillor, some of the councillors that were here in the last term, you may have seen this at AMO. There were a number of presentations being made by the minister at that time. They were looking at police officer jobs, and they were looking at alternative skills. And at the time of his last presentation, I recall that it was going nowhere. And they were really studying this in earnest, because there was an attempt, I can't remember the terminology that they were using now, that they were looking for a significant change in the way policing was being done. So you could start searching a bit, Councillor Michalek. You may find something that's on social media about that, but it was quite extensive. Not a discussion we had at the region, but definitely at the provincial level. It was quite detailed.
I appreciate that. And the reason why I ask that question is I ask that of our regional representatives to ask those questions of the police chief, you know, as you know, because we're trying to find efficiencies, right? That may have occurred, those discussions that you mentioned, Madame Mayor, may have occurred in the previous administration or the previous Liberal government. I'm not sure, but I feel there could be an opportunity to save a substantial amount of money by having, you know, with certain current police duties being done by other trained, you know, professionals with that regard. And, if I may, one more point, one more question I have with regards to the police services. Has there been any discussion about mental health? Or, you know, we had this discussion earlier about, you know, the increases in mental health and the concerns. And, you know, in the past, during the summer, there's been a lot of debate or discussion about, you know, police officers and, you know, whether or not, like, when they show up to a domestic dispute or show up to a crisis, mental crisis, a mental emergency dispute, crisis, has there been any discussion amongst the police force with regards to having trained professionals attend those sort of confrontations or those sort of calls?
I can tell you, Councillor Michalek, that you know, you're getting into the area of a variety of services that are coming into play. You know, for instance, and I don't think you guys really want to go in through all of this tonight, but we could probably have a good discussion on how a lot of the emergency services are really working. But there's been drastic changes to the way EMS is working, and in fact, you know, we're leaders within the province with this, and this includes, you know, heavy emphasis on mental health and also on you know, immediate nursing and triaging that's going into play. And with the police themselves, getting the information into their hands as things are moving along. So, my opinion anyway, I'd say that might be a good discussion that we may want to have at some other point.
The use of non-police In those situations, counselor has been in place, I believe, for 3 years now, where registered nurses are mental health workers. Most of them are registered nurses. I don't know whether they all are. That's been in place, it's 3 years now.
And I appreciate that. And we're municipal government. I'm just a municipal councillor bringing forward an issue to a regional councillor. And that's why I appreciate Councillor Foster attending, so that I can bring these sort of, local community type concerns towards yourself, that you can bring them forward and see what we can do about it. That's why I bring it up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, Councillor Michalek.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor. I have a motion now that is moved by Councillor Rajima and seconded by Councillor Reimer to receive and file as information Regional Councillor Foster's update on January 18th, 2021. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay.
Support.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Michalek,
Yes.
Councillor Panchariva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support.
Thanks, that carries.
All right. Madam
Night, guys.
Clerk. Thank you very much, Rob. Good night. We're now at item number 13, motion to consider confidential items. And these are items 13.1 and 13.2. Before I read the motion, we'll be going into closed session. I want to explain what will happen for those watching the meeting. First, there will be a closed session statement that the clerk will go through for all of council and staff that will be attending the closed session. And once that's completed, we'll move on with the motion to move into close. And the clerk will then turn off the live webcast during the closed portion of the meeting. Once we've completed the closed portion of the meeting, we will resume with the live webcast and carry on with the public portion of the meeting, and we'll read the motions in public session. I'll ask the clerk to conduct the closed session statement for all of council and others attending the closed session. However, before we do that, I'm going to ask members if they have any interest in a 5-minute break. Okay, I just have one person. I think that's all that I saw. So I'm just going to allow anybody that wishes to take a break to do that. Come back in 3 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Clerk.